Welcome back to the pod. I'm Gabriel, and today I'm talking with a good friend, a client, and an inspiring woman, mother, and senior VP of elections, system, and software. Well, I mean, Vicky, this is an episode I've been looking forward to for a bit. I know we've been talking about this over the past few weeks, and we had an interesting topic coming into this discussion right now. And you mentioned something along the lines of transactional, with kind of like, you come into a fitness journey, and it's like, okay, I want to drop the pounds, I want to know how to keep it off, and that's it, right?
hmm
Kind of like very transactional. I thought that was very interesting, kind of way to start off this conversation because it's been from my understanding, I think we're now close to about a year and a half into your fitness journey.
Yeah.
You've changed dramatically, physically, mentally, emotionally. I mean, you're a completely different person. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I'd actually love if you'd highlight that part about transactional and where your mindset, where you were kind of like, a year and a half ago, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I'd be happy to. Because I guess if I would have known then what I know now, I wouldn't have been in that place. But so I was tired of the yo yoing of gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight. And I didn't want to do that anymore. One is I wanted to go into retirement, whatever this retirement journey is going to be, in the best health I could be. But I always thought that was just about getting skinny. And that's
Mm,
very transactional. That
mm,
means that I thought, meant that I eat less, lose more weight, and
mm.
then get skinny. And then
Right.
all of a sudden, everything's solved. It's done.
It's
If
done.
you check the box of what you eat during the day and you look up, you get on the scale and you lose weight or you gain weight, and then you adjust accordingly. And so that's a very transactional state of mind, which is exactly why I was in the condition I was in when
Mm,
I came to partner with you, to work with you, is I was at the end of my rope. I didn't know what else I could do. I thought I was doing all the steps.
mhm, mhm,
What I quickly realized is it's just not about the actions. There are so many other components to this, and a big part of it is the emotional component.
mm. And that's
The,
a mhm,
the state of mind,
right.
all the other things that go with it. It's just not about what you put in your mouth and how much it's on the scale. That's
Mhm,
a big learning for me. And so I do believe that the first part of my journey, I would say probably the first 6 months, Gabriel, it was about following the plan.
mm,
Again, very
mhm.
transactional,
Sure.
working the plan, pulling up the app,
Mhm.
charting all the food I ate, make sure I do the workout,
The
check,
fundamentals. Yeah.
very fundamental.
Yeah.
And it was working, but it just didn't feel sustainable.
That's interesting. So part of what I'm hearing is that on one side we have kind of like the physical actions, the fundamentals, right? The structure, so to speak.
Mhm.
And then on the other side, you have kind of like the inner terrain, right? The emotional aspect, the kind of like the identity, like who you're becoming. And so you started off kind of like with more the transactional mindset mentality, right? You'd gone, I guess, a large bulk of your adult life, kind of like trying different techniques, tactics, fitness or dietary kind of like strategies. I mean, what were things like for you over the past, like, let's say 10, 15, 20 years before in your health and fitness?
Yeah. Well, it was definitely chasing the latest, weight loss craze. I'm a lifelong member at Weight Watchers, and every sort of diet craze or hey, put your arm in the air and hold your breath 3 times and you'll lose 10 pounds. Anything, just kidding, but anything that sounded like it was gonna be, an easy path
Sure.
or an easy route to lose weight.
Got
And
it.
again, I highlight that because the journey has gone from losing weight to being healthy.
Mm,
And the losing weight is very transactional, and
mm,
the being healthy incorporates so much more than just the pattern of eating.
mm,
So I would say Gabriel, I can remember when I was probably 10 years old. I went to Weight Watchers with my mother. So
Wow.
this has been a pattern for years and years and years.
Would you say, I mean, this is something that your mother was following then, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. So it's like, kind of like getting passed on, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Her patterns of eating were you don't eat bread,
Mm,
you restrain from eating dessert. So that's just what how she was raised, and that is how I learned. That was the relationship I had with food. It's the relationship I had with my body.
mm,
Again, very transactional, very unhealthy,
mm.
and not sustainable.
Right. Wow. I appreciate you sharing that. I actually had no idea that that was kind of like the background, and we could call it like the conditioning, right? Like kind of
Yes.
like the pattern being passed on. But
Yes, absolutely.
yeah, I could only imagine like kind of like how that would create a certain relationship with like food, nutrition, kind of like overall health in your body, just based off of what you're sharing so far.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I remember being in college and, afraid of those freshman 10, and I ate lettuce with mustard on it
Wow. Oh
because I
my
had
gosh.
heard that mustard doesn't have calories. So again, a very unhealthy, unsustainable path to getting healthy.
Understood.
Because you get starving and all of a sudden then there's a cake in front of you and what do? I eat the cake.
Right.
So, yeah, it has all of those patterns are just things I grew up with, things that I knew, and
Mm.
I didn't have the right information.
I mean, would you say, did you ever feel like you were gonna feel confident with your health, or do you feel like, I'm just gonna keep looking for the next thing, or maybe the next thing will work? You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly right, and when I started this, I thought it sounded almost too good to be true, you
Mhm.
know, busy executive women, and
Sure.
help them get healthy, and I thought, "Okay, well, I'm gonna try this."
Yeah. It sounds like me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm busy.
Uh-huh.
I'm a
Yeah.
woman. I'm an executive. This works.
There's other people like me, there's
Yes.
other people like me, so
Well, let's talk about, before we get into kind of like physical metrics and changes and things like that. I mean, talk to me about perfectionism for a second, because I feel like
oh,
this is something that we've talked about for a lot. I mean, for a long time already. I mean, this is something I would say that, I mean, full transparency, probably over 90% of the clients that we work with, have some sort of kind of like relationship with perfectionism, or maybe a little bit more on the type A, or just wanting to control a lot
oh,
of the variables. I mean, you understand what I mean.
oh, gosh, that's my middle name. That is my middle name. Yeah, and I think it is being a very high achiever.
Hmm.
There's lots of us out there that we have very high expectations of ourselves. We feel that we are the ones that can do it. We feel like we're either successful or we're a failure, and
Mm,
we're always achieving for greatest success.
mhm.
And we feel like we're the ones that have to own it and do it.
Right.
And that's true no matter if you're talking about your work, you're talking about your family, or you're talking about your health.
Sure. Sure.
And oh yeah, and highly competitive.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sure that I mean that goes hand in hand. And I know that you've seen that in me. I am highly competitive and I'm
Mhm.
going to win at all cost. I'm just
Mm.
kidding, but I will win at all cost. And
Just kidding, Matt.
so sometimes that doesn't allow us to slow down
Yes.
and be very mindful about the decisions we make. And I mean, that's something that I've learned over the last year and a half is that sometimes you have to go slow to go fast.
Powerful. Powerful. And that is something it is more challenging, especially if you're going with this more. I mean, we can say high achiever, but in my mind, it's a little bit more of the overachiever, where it's kind of like we just push ourselves a little bit too far, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of like we want to have a balance, so to speak. And that's like, to your point right here. It's like actually slowing down actually can lead to more achievement, to more better results sustainably. But it is, yeah, it's a bit harder, especially if you haven't learned how to kind of like rein things in a little bit, learned how to kind of like tame your mind, because that's kind of like at the root of it,
Yes.
right? If we kind of go on
Yeah.
the inner side, I mean, that's at the root of it. It's like, we have kind of like this, uh, in Zen Buddhism, they would call it like, they have the ox herding pictures. I don't know if you've ever seen this. So they're 12 pictures, beautiful, right? So they're 12 different pictures. In each picture, there's a small boy, and he's looking for an ox. The ox represents the mind, right? Like the monkey mind, so to speak, right? And so at the beginning, the first few pictures there, he's looking for the ox, and the ox is nowhere to be found. And then he finds the ox, and then he has to kind of like tame the ox, so to speak. He puts a rope, and then near the end of the pictures, he brings the ox back home. Doesn't need the rope, doesn't need anything. They walk together side by side. It's a good representation of kind of like first, we're a bit crazy, right? We don't even know where our mind is. It's like nuts, and then we have to learn how to tame it and train it, and then eventually we don't need to use those tools anymore, right? Whether it's kind
Right.
of like 1 minute of deep breathing, or just centering, or just, I know you love going to the beach, having like a space for kind of like our own like sanity, relaxation, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that monkey mind and the overachiever, the high achiever comes from constantly want to strive for whatever this is out in front of us.
Mm,
A skinny body, the epitome of what health looks like,
mm,
instead of really focusing on what matters most to us and matters most to me.
mm.
And and just feeling like we always have to be in constant motion and
Right.
doing more and doing something versus centering and remembering why we're doing this, remembering our goals.
Mhm.
And a great example of this, and I know you'll laugh when I tell you this because you were front and center to this journey, and that is the very first the contest that you
Oh, yes, the challenge.
the
Yes.
challenge.
The challenge, yes.
And so my mind is, I am going to win this. I am going to do everything on that checklist to win this. And I'm going to win. I'm going to be at the top of the mountain. And of course, that's what I did when I got up every morning, is to say, okay, how do I get more points? Versus remembering that this is about me. This is about, making good choices every day,
Mhm.
making the right choices for me, giving myself grace on the days that, it just doesn't feel like I got any more energy in the tank, or that, I want, you know, I want to have that piece of pizza. And so giving myself grace for my own journey
Mhm.
versus feeling like I have to win. And that
Right.
is a big deal for me. And that, if anything, that's one of the things that I've garnered from this is, again, slowing down,
Mhm.
making the right decisions, not having to win, whatever win is. Again,
Mhm.
this is
Sure.
not transactional.
Mhm.
This
Mhm.
is a continuous journey that I'm on.
This is huge, and just for context, Vicky's referring to the first 30-day fitness challenge that we ran. I think this was back in September last year. And yes, and by the way, she did actually win. She did
Of
win, just for
course.
context. She did. But to her point, I hear that there's a little bit more of a disassociation with kind of like I need to have that external validation, or that kind of like external result, to more like, I'm doing this regardless, right? Like, this is going to happen regardless. And by the way, if I pick up some accolades along the way, like, amazing,
Yes.
amazing,
Yes.
that's great. But yeah, there's a big, and that's one of the biggest shifts I've seen in you is, and we can talk about some of kind of like the physical changes as well. I mean, like, talk to me about the first big goal, right? The first big goal. I mean, you came in here with a weight loss, fat loss goal specifically, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. But 30 pounds, that was my goal, is to get down to a certain weight. And that was probably about 30 pounds.
About 30 pounds.
And I had been on that journey multiple times, like hundreds of times. Oh,
Mm,
just lose 30 pounds. And I did. I hit it. I hit it. It wasn't easy. The plan is simple, but it wasn't easy. It was hard. There were
mm,
days it was harder than others, but I did. I accomplished it. And for me, am wearing a size I've never thought I haven't worn since I was 4 years old.
jeez.
Um, yeah, and those are wonderful accomplishments. What I'm realizing is that's just part of this journey. Those are just steps along the way. Those are accomplishments along the way. It's not the end goal. That's not the end goal. I thought it was going to be the end goal, but it's not the end goal.
And this is the part where I feel like we're either gonna lose people or people are gonna lean in and listen to this a little bit more because what Vicky just shared there, I mean, this is so crucial here because she came in wanting to drop, 20, 30 pounds. She dropped the 30 pounds. She had been trying to drop 30 pounds for a while.
Hmm.
She reached the goal and she believed she had this expectation like once this is hit, I'm good, right? Like this is
Yeah.
done, right? And
Yep.
what she's sharing here, what you're sharing here, I mean, that's not it, right? This is actually just the next chapter
Yes.
onto that.
Yes.
Speaking
Absolutely.
speaking to the higher kind of like executive functioning, like more the logical side of our brain, right? The part of the audience that's going to be listening say, so what did she do? Like, what did we do? Right? Like, did we start doing juice cleanses and start doing like all this random like, you know, you ever saw Shake Weight? You know the Shake Weight? They had the Shake Weight. Oh
Oh,
my god,
I
this
think
was
I have one.
oh my gosh, I used to have one. This was years ago. Oh my god. I don't know if it was my father or somebody who bought it. I think so. He bought it, and I guess he thought like, "Oh, this is cool." And my brother and I actually thought like, "Wow, like our arms are getting toned." This I would think I was like 14 or 15 at the time. I was like, "Oh my gosh, like this is crazy." The things that they put on infomercials, it's absurd.
Yes, it is. People believe it because it's a get rich, get skinny
Right.
scheme that sounds too good to be true because it is.
Well, they'll usually have like a good like fitness model or somebody like pretty well like in shape and stuff. Somebody who is obviously lifting weights and tracking their nutrition and, you know,
Yeah.
endorsing this product.
Yeah. Yes.
Well,
Yep.
talk to me about what we did then. What did we do that was different for you that made this stick at least to get us to the first 30 pounds? We can talk about what we're doing now in a second, but
Yeah.
let's start with the
Yeah.
the first goal.
Well, can I paint a picture here?
Sure.
Because when I start to walk through what did you and I do, what did we do? Let's just paint a background of what 2025 looked like for me.
Okay.
Um, uh, Huge business year going through role transition.
Hmm.
Very busy year, very chaotic year with my profession, the job I had, lots going on, lots of being pulled in multiple directions, traveling a lot. My mom was going through her diagnosis of pancreatic cancer, transitioning them into a new facility, helping her with her health journey. I had kids that had moved back in to the house with me, so there was a lot going on. There
Mm.
was a tremendous amount of noise going on.
Didn't your parents move at the end of the year, or your dad,
Well,
or your she
she
passed?
passed in October, and then sorry, before that, we moved them into a senior living facility, and then
Okay,
she passed in October.
understood.
And so
Okay.
he was living, and helping him transition into his new life
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
There's a
Just
lot of
just
go
to add that into the pot as well.
Yeah.
I'm like, wasn't
Just
there this and this too?
well, I'm sure most of us in the same boat all have all of these things going on, so many things pulling for our attention, pulling for, those of us who want be a part of everything, help everything, uh, uh, in control. There's that control word again.
Yep. Yep. Of
So
course.
it was a tremendously chaotic year.
Mhm.
And what you came in and helped me establish is consistency, a pattern of consistency. When I think about the model here that we're using for this lifestyle is that it's simple, but it requires consistency
Mhm.
and it requires a remembering of why I'm doing this. And this is for me.
Mhm.
So this is so against what I've ever thought in the past is I've
Mhm.
got to put myself first. In
Mhm.
order to help all these other people around me, I got to put myself first.
Absolutely.
And so this this model of consistency, what I need to do, I need to follow this macro plan,
Mhm.
and then I need to implement this fitness routine.
Mhm.
And if I just
Specifically on the um, fitness, tell me like what we did in that row.
Well, I had a plan of working, lifting weights.
Mhm.
lifting weights and then doing body movements and being in motion. And every day there was a series of these activities
Mhm.
from being in the gym and lifting weight,
Mhm.
or when I started off, I could barely lift a 5-pound dumbbell.
Oh my
I mean,
gosh.
when I looked at those dumbbells, I'm like, who's lifting 35 pounds? I'm on the 5 pounds. And over time, we just through repetition of of those workouts, of the weight training
Mhm.
and the body movement and the
Mhm.
consistently, being in walking,
Mhm.
making sure I get my steps in,
Mhm.
making sure that I'm, looking at the macros. And just knowing if I just follow that every day and I consistently show up and do that, all of those things start to fit together. And all
Yes.
of a sudden, starting to feel better, starting to
Mhm.
see movement on the scale.
Mhm.
I'm starting to feel like if I'm not in the gym, I kind of miss it.
Yeah. Yeah, right, right, right. Because you're building that consistency, the adherence to the structure,
Hmm.
to who you're
Yeah.
becoming. For context also, so when you're saying body movements, obviously we mean body weight workouts.
Yes.
Just for anybody who's like, "What is a body movement?"
Oh, yeah. That's true.
Is it just like, are we doing the salsa, cha cha cha,
Shaking our hands.
shaking our
Yeah.
hands?
Uh huh.
So
Yes.
so specifically, and I know we had, I think give or take, I mean, we've averaged about 4 strength workouts, 4 resistance training sessions pretty much for over a year plus at this point, and we've done on average about 1 body weight workout per week as well.
Hmm.
So about 4 to
Yeah.
5 workouts, give or take, on a given week as kind of like your resistance training or your strength training or your exercise standard. Let's say your
Hmm.
exercise standard, and then obviously we had kind of like a certain step goal. Typically, we're aiming for at least like minimum like 7 to 8, but on some days we're obviously surpassing that much higher, and then some other basic health habits, including hydration. And then we come over to the nutrition realm. I mean, primarily for the fat loss slash weight loss goal that we were aiming for, we used the kind of like the main driver of fat loss, which is a caloric deficit, right? So when you're saying obviously the macro plan, we obviously have kind of like the hierarchy: calories, caloric deficit first, and then we just set up the protein, carbohydrates, and fats. I mean, being somebody who at the beginning of this conversation you mentioned like, being like a self-professed, like lifelong member of Weight Watchers, I mean, this kind of flips the script where it's kind of like I got, simple but not easy. Just to
Yep.
be clear, simple
Yep.
but not easy exercise protocol. And then again, I would say the same thing with nutrition: simple but not easy nutrition protocol, where it's like, this is the structure, this is the parameters. I'm not being told I need to restrict all my desserts now. It's like, hey, if I choose to have a dessert, I can have a dessert. If I choose to eat a certain way, I can eat in a certain way. But
Right.
this is the structure. This is the parameter, right?
Right.
With exercise, I think it's a little bit more rigid, obviously, because we want to have a little bit more kind of like specific variables, and obviously you want to see the response to how you respond to exercise. I mean, that's probably something else that you probably maybe notice as well, is we didn't change the exercises every single week or every 2 weeks, so to speak.
Yes.
Can,
Yes.
can you speak to both of those points?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was something that I didn't quite understand when we first started doing this is we went, I think, 8 to 10 week cycles of of working in a particular phase with a particular set of exercises, movements, weight training and resistance training. And I again went through the motions, not really understanding what the end goal was going to look like, but knowing, in fact, I kind of questioned it at first. Like,
Sure.
should
Yeah.
I not be doing like 50 minutes of cardio every day?
Yeah.
Isn't that what you're supposed to do in order to lose weight? You mean me going and lifting these dumbbells, time over time over time is going to change my body
Hmm.
composition?
Hmm.
I was really I didn't know that that was gonna work or not,
You weren't
but
told. Yeah.
yeah, but the consistency of it and the also even I being able to do it, like, I could do this.
Hmm.
I could go into a gym where everybody's lifting weights, and I can do this. I
Hmm.
can lift weights, and I started to get confidence in
Hmm.
being able to do these exercises, resistance training, because I could do it. And the pattern of it not changing, what every to 10, 8 to 10 weeks,
Mhm.
is that I could get familiar with it and I
Mm,
could practice it and I could get better at it. And then the weight, I could add to the weights.
mm.
Just all it began to make sense.
Right. Right. And I think as somebody, I don't believe you would have gotten where you are in your career and kind of like your in other areas of your life, if you hadn't mastered the fundamentals. Right. And that's really, I mean, kind of like if you look at kind of like what we've laid down here is like railroad tracks, right? It's like you
Right.
don't get good or you don't graduate to kind of like the more advanced tactics or the more advanced strategies if you haven't mastered the basics. Right. And I think that's something that
Yeah.
I think a lot of us like in the pursuit of the next shiny health fitness object or the shiny fitness object, right? The next shake weight, right? We miss out, right? Like you said, if we don't slow, like one of my favorite quotes is slow is smooth and smooth is fast, right? And so when we actually slow down enough, right, to actually see clearly, like, what's the landscape here? Like,
Yeah.
what's the end goal even, right? Because so many of us, we don't start with the end in mind. We're just like, all right, let's drop the 10 pounds in 2 weeks, right?
Uh-huh.
Because
Yeah.
it's appealing, right? It's appealing.
Yeah. I think the other part to that too, Gabriel, is that, and I'm sure most people can relate to this, and that is, especially in the type of person that you're working with, we feel like we have to have the answers. Like, we should know this. We
Mhm.
should know everything about this.
For sure.
We should know this program. We should know to do it this way. And what I've learned is I know nothing. And that you have been able to give me bits of information along the way that builds this journey, just like managing not only the eating
Mhm.
component of it, the calorie side of it,
Mhm.
but that the other things that go with it is sleep and
Mm,
stress and
huge.
all the components to it. I knew that, but I didn't really know it. And I didn't the other part to it is when I was struggling in certain times during this journey, during this last year and a half, prior to this, I would have given up. I would
Mhm.
have gone, this isn't for me.
Sure.
And what you said to me is, no, no, hold on, hold on. Let's consider where you're at. Let's look at all the components. Let's look at what you're eating. Let's
Mhm.
look at your sleep habits. Let's look at what might be creating stress. And data and information is so powerful. But
Mhm.
unless we stop and we evaluate it,
Right.
it's easy to give up. It's easy to go, oh, I can't do this.
Of
I
course.
can't do this.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite reminders, especially when it comes to data, is in order to make an informed decision, we need at least 6 data points. And yet, how many of us judge our fitness journey off of that one beloved number that we see in the morning?
Ugh, the
Right?
scale.
The scale, right? And it's like then we make rash decisions based off of that one number when in reality, and I think that we've had plenty of situations. I mean, specifically 2025, right? We've used strategies like diet breaks. We've used tactics like refeeds. We've used
Yeah.
deload weeks, right? We've had to navigate and maneuver experiences like when you've had water retention and you've had the whoosh effect, right? So, I mean,
Yes.
talk to me about. So, yes, we got the physical stuff there, the tools that we used, but emotionally, I mean, this is where most people they car wreck themselves,
Yep.
right?
Yeah. It's very easy to do that. I can give you we can talk about a couple different situations where you had to talk me through what was happening and what I should be thinking about. So
Mhm,
just one that comes into mind is when I went back up to maintenance calories
mhm,
so that we could start the building muscle phase.
mhm.
And all of a sudden, I gained like 6 or 7 pounds. The scale went up in a
Yep,
week.
yep.
And my panicked text to you is, Gabriel, I'm not sure this is normal. But in the past, I probably would have been, oh my God, see, I told you,
Yep,
this
that's it.
isn't for me.
Yep.
But I remember you saying, hold on, let's think about all the things that could have on during the week. Did you eat a lot of sodium? Tell me what you ate. What could this be from? And
Mhm.
evaluating as it is, as it
Yes,
really is. and
Yes.
not panicking and not losing faith that we're doing the right things. And I remember taking a deep breath and going, okay, okay, I'm okay. You're right. There are things that are contributing to this weight gain. And you assured me that as we were evaluating it, that it could, let's keep an eye on it. Let's make a few changes to what we're doing. And it did. It did. It went
Mhm.
down. But that's part of this is realizing that there's lots of things that could impact your journey along the way and
Mhm.
making sure that you're evaluating the facts
Yes.
instead
Absolutely.
of getting all caught up in the emotions of it.
For sure. For sure. I mean, there's so much noise in the fitness world. And specifically, if we're talking about weight loss and fat loss right now, there's so much noise, but we really need to listen for the music, right? For the signals, so to speak, right? Because when you look at the signals, right, versus the noise, the distractions, right? When we're looking at trends versus fluctuations, right? So easy, especially if you monitor your body weight or different metrics on a daily basis, right? And this is like a
It is.
roller coaster ride of emotions, right?
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
when we start to, and I love this phrase, where we start to paint that picture, right? We start to take that step back and look at things more on a weekly or even every 10 days or so, you start to see the real trend reveal itself, even if it's a little bit slow. For context, also, for uh, anybody who starts off a weight loss or fat loss journey, you'll typically notice, right? You'll drop maybe 3 to 6 pounds pretty quick in the first few weeks. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, right? But what was lost must be regained, right? Because that usually that first 3 to 6 pounds that you drop right out of the gate is not initial fat loss, but
Mhm.
actually water weight loss. And so
Mhm.
to speak to Vicky's point right here, when we come back up to maintenance calories, oftentimes you'll find that you'll regain that lost water weight, right? The muscles will fill back up. Gut content will fill back up. I mean, you're no longer in a kind of like energy restriction phase, right? AK being in a caloric deficit, you know? So the emotional aspect, which I really like that you've highlighted heavily so far, is something I don't think it's spoken about enough. I don't think that, I think that a lot of high achievers may believe that they're emotionless, but I think that actually, a lot of that perfectionism is actually driven by emotion,
It
right?
is.
Talk to me about, so we dropped the 30 pounds. I mean, you navigated one hell of a year last year.
Mhm.
We put the standards in place and that left you in a different place than you expected. You didn't expect to maybe think like, that there's another stage, there's a next chapter for you.
Yeah.
So what happened then?
Well, lots of things happened. One, there's a sort of a sense of confidence that happens, and that's really not a strong enough word. There is a mental transformation that happens when one, I reached the goal. Okay, I reached the
Mm,
weight goal. But what I also did is I changed my body in ways that I never realized I could. And I could achieve things
mm,
like being able to lift dumbbells and being able to get into the gym and feeling confident about being there
mm,
and and wanting to be there.
mm.
Like, who is this person? I don't know how many times I said that to you. Like, who is this person? Who is this person that's showing up every day
Yes.
that schedules my workouts every week to make sure that I get those in, that I'm doing it, not just to do them, but I look forward to it. I look forward to, getting in and doing the workouts. Is it easy? No.
Mm-mm,
But is it fulfilling when it's done? Absolutely. And realizing that I have so much more to do
mm,
that I want to do,
mm.
I can't wait to see a continued transformation in my body. I can't wait to continue to learn about new ways to build muscle and be able to get strong and wanting to do that. Not just there's no endpoint now. Before
Right.
there was an endpoint. Now there's no endpoint. Now I'm like, okay, come on, Gabriel, bring it on. Let's continue to see what I can do. And I will push myself in ways because I know I can do it. So
Right.
there's just renewed confidence about no matter how old you are, at my age, I can do this. It doesn't matter how old you are.
Right. Right. Well, you say at your age, but I always see you as still quite young. But for context, I mean, you are in your early 60s, and that's something
Yes.
that contextually, I think that majority of people that I know, neighbors, friends, things like that, who are in their 50s, let alone 60s, are not engaging with their health and their body in the fashion that we're discussing, right? They're
Mhm.
actually, it's actually the exact opposite. Oftentimes, like in sometimes not so great condition, which is it's quite sad.
It is, and I think it seems overwhelming.
Mm.
Some in myself, having to lose this weight or wanting to be healthy, whatever that meant to me a year and a half ago, seemed unachievable. Like it seemed like such a big mountain to climb
In the
because I
fact
would
that
have
it
to
was
do
just
so much.
in the fact of the actions or the information.
Well, to the actions, like, how
Okay.
do I even do it? And, "Oh my gosh, this is gonna take forever, and I don't think I can do it, and I've got too much on my plate."
Hmm.
I created my own hurdles,
Hmm.
mentally created my own hurdles that I couldn't do it because I didn't have the time to do it, or I
Right.
was too busy, or too people needed too much of me.
Mm.
And I realized, back to your point about it's simple, and if you're consistent with the plan, everybody can do this.
It's just kind of like hacking away at the unessentials in health and fitness, where it's like you don't need to actually do 20 different things. It's actually, we could probably break it down to maybe 3 to 5 core actions, you know, maybe an action in exercise, one in nutrition, maybe one in sleep, maybe
Yeah.
something in stress, hydration. And I mean, that sounds so simple, and that pretty much sums it up. I mean, that's basically it. And yes, contextually, yes, you're going to see better results if it's optimized to your body, right? To your
Right.
specific goals, things like that. But I mean, having like one core habit in each of those kind of like few domains that I just mentioned there, I mean, that would pretty much summarize, having a pretty solid health and fitness journey. And
Mhm.
especially for someone like you, I mean, that simplified so much for us because, and there was one point last year that I remember, and I remember you texting me about this. Something along the lines of you had lost a little bit of consistency. I'm not sure if it was during the time when you were moving your parents in or around the time of your mother's passing. And you mentioned that you felt like I need to really stay consistent with this because I feel like if I like you what you mentioned to me, something along the lines like you felt a little bit like you lost a little bit of your momentum
Yep.
and you felt like you were going back. And I thought
Mhm.
that was so important because, especially in the phase that you were in right then, which was really building out your habits, habit development, you
Yeah.
hadn't solidified it to that point, which means it's so easy, especially at that critical point, to actually go backwards
Mhm.
because we want to make sure that those are concrete. Like you said, we want to move into that lifestyle integration where it's like this is just part of my life at this point, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's kind of like those crucial points, so to speak, as we move kind of like through each segment of this journey.
There definitely are points along the way where, life gets in the way, something happens, and it does have the possibility of interfering with those small habits that I'm wanting to create. And what I've realized is I have to make the conscious decision that I'm going to s- um, do those habits, do those things every day. And I mean, there were days where I had to go, okay, there's a lot going on today, but how am I going to make sure that I get my workout in? Like
Mhm.
has to become priority. That has to be what everything else is built around. And it's hard.
Mhm.
There are times where it's hard to stop and make that conscious decision that you're going to, yeah, nope, I'm going to show up at the gym today. I know that I've got 16 things in front of me, but I'm going to figure out how to get it done. Because if not, to your point about losing momentum, I remember there were a couple weeks where I couldn't find my way to the gym. And all
Mhm.
of a sudden, towards the end of that, I found it easier to make the decision not to than to
Right.
make the decision to.
So important, and we just spoke about this, I think, last time we spoke face to face, which was you're reading Atomic Habits again, and
Oh,
one thing that I mean, just coming back from James's book is that habits never really go away. They silently wait in the background, waiting for an opportunity to sneak back in. And those habits can be positive or negative,
uh,
right? So
yes.
everything that we do, and James also mentioned that after 2 days or more in a row, we start to create a new habit. 2 days or more, right? So that means if you stop exercising and taking care of your health for 2 days or more, what happens? You
Yeah.
start to create the habit of not
Not.
exercising, right? That
Mm-hmm.
is a habit, right? Just
Yeah.
like the habit of exercising,
Yes.
right?
Oh,
And
it's
so,
so true.
so true, right?
Very true. Yes, and it's an easy pattern to get into in the very
Mhm,
beginning. I'm still in the beginning, but
mhm.
in the beginning, it's very easy to fall back into those habits, the habits we had before we were making new habits.
Right, right. And it's not, what I like about habits, at least the way that Clear lays it out, is eventually we get to the point where it's subconscious, it's automatic, right? You don't think about it. But in those early days, like it's kind of like a startup, right? Like you really want to make sure you're hitting the KPIs, you're like dialed in on things. Like,
Yeah.
people are like, people are doing their job, so to
Mhm.
speak.
And you do have to think about that. It is the beginning of this. It is conscious. You do have to make conscious decisions. You do
Mm,
have to uh, make sure that you create the space for this.
mm,
It doesn't just happen automatically. And I
mhm.
think I thought that's why it wasn't working because it should just happen automatically. It
Right,
doesn't just happen automatically.
right.
You have to make these conscious decisions on a daily basis. Yeah, I think I told you the other one that I put in place, thank thanks to James Clear on the Atomic Habits, is what could I do to make it attractive for me to go
Mm,
to the gym every day?
mm.
Besides it made me feel good. But I think I told you, well, I bought 5 really cool workout tops and that
Yes,
makes me look forward to
yes.
going to the gym because I get to wear these cool workout tops.
Mm,
Hey, if that's one way it's going to make me go to the gym and it makes me feel good, it's okay to do that.
absolutely.
So,
But the thing is, I mean, you're tying the science with the action, right? You're making it attractive. You're
yeah.
making it you make it easy for yourself, right? Also, I mean, the way that you're structuring out. I mean, if you didn't structure out your workouts, when we spoke about this, we bounced this back and forth. It's like, yeah, I gotta schedule it in. If it's
Uh-huh.
not scheduled in, it's not real. It's a
Yes.
fantasy.
Yes.
Let's do a quick summary. You've done you dropped to 30 pounds, right? Give me a quick kind of like bullet point like summary, like what are you most happy about, proud about? What do you feel the most like grateful for creating in your body and health over this past year and a half? Could be inches down, clothes sizes, mental wins. Like just give me a quick summary. I'm curious kind of like where you're at.
Yeah. It's all of those, but I think the one that I am most proud of and that I did not realize how important this was going to be to me is the change in my mental confidence.
Mhm.
And this journey, this weight loss journey, this losing weight, which I love, and I love I can go into the store and buy clothes that I love to put on, and I love that I'm in a size I've never worn before. But what I love is how much confidence this has given me to think about in other parts of my life.
Okay.
And this just has impacted my physical being. It has impacted how I show up at work,
Mhm.
how I think about what I really want to do at work and what do I want to be at work. And it has made me slow down to speed up.
Mhm.
Like, while I'm still a very high achiever and still very competitive, and that probably will never go away, this has given me the ability to slow my thinking and say, "Okay, wait, you can create and cause your outcome, this end goal. What is it that you really want? Like, what
Mm,
do you really want?" And I love how this has seeped into all parts of my life. I have had multiple people say to me, "I don't know what's happened to you, but you are not the same person you were a year ago."
mm,
Like, your confidence in how you show up, your confidence in other places is very visible, and so
mm.
that's what I'm most proud of.
It's amazing, and I love the way that you framed it, that the confidence that you instilled in yourself has basically leaked into every other area of your life. Specifically, if we're talking about kind of like your professional, kind of like work life, I mean, you're such a radically different person that this is now changing the trajectory of how you're thinking about kind of like maybe professional goals or work capacity
Yes.
or things like that.
Yes, it has, and I probably in ways that I don't realize, but there's definitely this quiet confidence about, "Hey, I did this. I did this." Like,
Yeah.
I every day made a choice. The first 6
Yeah.
months, 8 months, it is about making conscious choices, and I made those conscious choices because I believed in myself. I also had a really good coach who helped me, who gave me information I didn't have to be able to make these good choices, and it has left me to be a different person, and I'm gonna be able to do more in the next, going forward. Again, there's not an end date to this.
Right, right. No, that makes sense. If you could, I guess, share your biggest lessons as we wrap up the last few questions here, what would you say have been like your biggest lessons? Whether it's been certain information, whether it's been kind of like ahas from training or you know nutrition protocols, like what would you give to yourself maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, as like, hey, sister, brother, like take this, like take this and like use this instead. Don't put those shake weights down.
Yeah. Well, I think there's 2. The first one is you don't have to do this on your own. Like, you don't have to have all the answers. Partnering with somebody who has the right framework, is able to think about who I am as a person and help me with this journey. I could not have got here on my own. And I think that that's a mistake that a lot of people make, to think that you can do it on your own, or you have all the answers. You don't. You don't. And coming from me, that is huge, because I do not admit that I don't have all the answers.
Sure.
So I think that's one of the things I would say to people is, it's okay to engage in in the right resources to help you in this journey, and realize that there's not an end date. The second thing is, you're going to laugh when I tell you this, but I had no idea what macros were. I know
Oh,
that
okay.
people talked about macros, and I'm like, "That sounds too complicated for me. I don't even know what that is." And then all of a sudden, again, going back to having someone who has great structure and good information to help me realize how this thing of macros could be a part of how I operate every day. This isn't a diet plan. This is just a way in which I can, manage my calories and manage my eating. So anyway, I like macros now.
Well, to your point on the first aspect, I think that there's this aspect and this idea of allocation, right? Delegation, so to speak, right? Where many of us are very accustomed, especially in kind of like the busy professional world, corporate world, maybe self-employed, small business owner, where we are very accustomed to delegate or allocate our cleaning, our maybe car services, certain things out to a professional, right? Our
Uh-huh.
bookkeeping, our taxes, things like that. It's like, yes, why would
Yeah,
I can do it by myself, but I number one probably don't want to, or number two, I don't have maybe the capacity to, learn all these things. And that's the thing, right? This is not to say that Vicky or anybody cannot do their own health and fitness journey, right? I mean, that to
right,
my point, I mean, that's the reason why I did not allocate and delegate for 6 or 7 years. I mean, this is my domain of expertise, right? This is my subject mastery, right? But
right.
even then, being 25, 30 pounds overweight having, been building muscle for years, but then, secretly gaining weight, I was like, shoot, actually, I do think I need some help. And I do think I need an expert to support me with this, even though I know the topic inside and out. Right. And I think that's so interesting. Whether you have a
Yeah.
high knowledge base or whether it's lower, the allocation and delegation is such an interesting topic because for me, it's like, what is your area of genius, right? Where is the area that you thrive? And what are the areas that maybe it just doesn't make sense to, invest hours per week of studying and learning and then trying to put this all together for yourself because the thing is it's not that you can't, all of us can. I actually believe
Right.
all of us can do this, and I think to a certain level I think that once we have those first few months, let's say the first like 3 to 6 months, like pretty much everybody can and should be working out by themselves and doing their plans by themselves. But then the idea of allocation and delegation comes in, which is the same reason why I still allocate and delegate my workouts out to somebody else, my nutrition to somebody else. Even though I very much can do it by myself, it just reduces the cognitive load on me,
Yes.
right? And
That's
I
a great
think
point.
right, and I think that's something that it took me a while, and I laugh when I hear this analogy, but it's like the difference between men and women, right? Where it's like a woman after like 10 months of like struggling to figure, not even 10 months, 10 weeks, right? Of struggling to put something together, figure something out, right? She's like, you know what? I'm just going to call a professional. I'm just going to ask somebody for directions. I'll just ask somebody for help, right? And a guy will go 10 years and he's like, don't worry, sweetie. I will figure that I'm on YouTube. I'm gonna Google it. Don't worry. I will put this house together. 10 years, right? It's just it's crazy, right? But it's like
True.
to the point of like actually, and this is where actually there does have to be some sort of like collaboration, right? Because we can talk about allocation and delegation, but unless you have a growth mindset, so to speak, and I mean, to my point, I had a fixed mindset for a long time. I thought I will do this by myself, right? But actually,
Yes.
with
Yeah.
a few tweaks and things like that, oftentimes you can see dramatic results, with the small hinges theory, right? Small hinges move big doors, right?
Yes.
We didn't need to have you in the gym 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week, right? You didn't have to, meal prep, 10 hours a week. It's like just focus on the small hinges, on those small areas, so to speak, and
Yes.
then let's move the big doors of fitness
Yes.
forward.
Yes. That is so true. Go back to your point about the meal planning. That was a really small, important hinge for me
Mm.
because I've of the mindset that you only eat cottage cheese and broccoli to lose weight. And what you really need to do is to feed your body.
Right.
And in that small one habit of making sure I meal plan and meal prep every week seemed at first like, oh my God, this is going to take so much time. But it's so interesting how that small amount of investment has reaped such big reward because
Mm.
I eat the right things at the right time and eat great food.
Mhm.
So again, small hinges do make a big difference.
They do. They do. If
Hmm.
you, I guess, could identify or maybe share to somebody who says like, you know what, I don't have enough time for my health, for my fitness, or you know what, I need to think more
Yeah.
about this. Like maybe this is not the right time for me. Like, what would you say to that type of person who they genuinely want to see results? They do want to change their body and health, but they're just putting it off, or they they
Yeah.
they don't think they have enough time.
I thought about that, Gabriel, because I thought, gosh, if I was sitting here listening to this um what would I want to hear? And the thing I would say to people is you don't have to start big. This is start small. Start small, you know, address one thing at a time until there's a comfort level or you can figure out how to make it work within your schedule and in with your life. But start small and build one habit or one consistency every day.
Hmm.
Whether it is, you know, um, eating to a certain caloric limit, um, caloric limit, or showing up in the gym and doing one set of exercises today, and then at the end of the day, go, look what I did. Okay. And then tomorrow, show up and do one more habit and just build on those things. doesn't require you to change your entire life,
Right.
but build slowly and then build consistently. That's what I would say, because I know so many people have so much going on in their lives. It's like, how could I fit this in?
Yep. For sure. For sure. Right. And I guess to that point, you've spoken to different kind of like colleagues and friends and things like that. I mean, what would be the advantages of working with, let's say, a professional coach online versus just, maybe a local personal trainer, right? Or a local nutritionist? Like, what have you seen as being advantageous? It's giving you a good ROI on kind of like your investment.
Oh, gosh. Well, there's 2 things I think about. I've had people say, "Well, why isn't your coach here in Omaha?" Well, Gabriel, you're as much of visible and present to me being in North Carolina and me in Omaha as if you were in Omaha or in the same city I was at. There's consistency in how we communicate. We communicate online, we communicate through a text, we have meetings. So there's consistency in how you and I are working together. And the other thing I would say is that there's immediacy to the feedback also and to the communication. So it doesn't matter if you're in the same place or not in the same place. We no matter where our locations are, we just have figured out how to communicate. We've got a good platform in which we work from, and we commit. That's the other part, is
Mhm.
committing to the times that we do get together, commit to making sure that I'm communicating with you on what's going on so that you can help me react to that. And so there's a commitment to that. And we've got great channels to be able to do that on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that back when I did do a lot more heavy in person training was the biggest disadvantages, even though there are certain advantages, obviously being able to cue and direct with exercise technique. But I think beyond that, I mean, there really was no discussion on kind of like nutrition periodization or protocols. There was like zero discussion on kind of like health habits or kind of like mindset or identity transformation, consistency, right? Standards. I know the main bulk of what we've spoken about for dozens of hours at this point,
Yeah.
over the course of a year. And I think that
Yeah.
um, our psychology, our nutrition, our health are just as important as exercise. It is interesting. I used to, in between barbell squats, I would have clients be doing squats or maybe not barbell squats, but exercises like dumbbells and things like that. And I would remember trying to coach them on their macros. I'm like, all right, so this is protein. This is as they're like catching their breath in between because it's only 55 minutes. That's I had to, condense it all in there. And
Yeah.
I think to the point that you shared, I think that there's been a streamlined collaboration system that has made sense for you. It's made sense
Yep.
for me. It's made sense for your health, and for what we've wanted to create together.
Yeah. And I think that what you're underscoring here is that there's a holistic approach to this.
Mhm.
This isn't just about the workout. I go to the gym and I see those coaches in the gym with their clients, and they meet their clients, at 5 o'clock and they're done at 5:45. And, that's probably the last time that they see them.
For sure.
You're right. We have a much more holistic approach to it. And you ask me, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Because how you're feeling impacts all the other things we need to do.
Mhm.
And it's easy to do because it isn't just about those 45 minutes in the gym. It's
Right.
about what happens in between those 45 minutes that I work out in the gym. Plus, I wouldn't want you to see me do the sumo squats because I might not have good form. I'm just kidding. And it's okay.
Well, to that point, what are you excited about over the next year together? What are you looking
Ah,
forward to?
well, I'm excited about starting to see the well, 2 things, physical change, as I am building muscle, because that's what the next phase is here, is
Mhm.
start to build muscle,
Yes.
in all parts, and starting again, or continuing to see what I can do,
Yes.
and being able to push myself in ways that I only think I can do, or maybe I think I can't do, and push myself in ways to continue to see how my body transforms.
Mhm.
And it's really great. I can look in the mirror and go, okay, I'm starting to see those muscles form in your arms. Good job. I see it when I go up to lift a weight instead of, a smaller weight, I can lift a heavier weight. I
Mhm.
can see it on my app when it goes, hey, good job. You just outperformed yourself, in three
Yeah,
different categories.
very
All
good.
those things are very meaningful for me. And so I want to continue to push myself in those ways.
Phenomenal. Yeah, I think I'm also excited about the same thing, especially with part of what you just mentioned there. It's like we actually don't know like what you're truly capable of. I mean, I personally don't even think we've properly even scratched the surface because, I think for many people, they'll start a fat loss or a weight loss phase, right? They'll drop the weight, right? Ideally, they learn how to keep the weight off, right? Which is kind of like I think a big part of what many people miss out on is it's not just about weight loss, it's about weight maintenance or body composition maintenance, as we've kind of like learned. We've done a couple DEXA scans, we've seen body fat loss, we've seen, different biometrics improve. I would love if you're open to it, share kind of like your experience with kind of like the quality of food because you had a kind of like a little bit of a health scare, right? Several months ago with kind of like the
Yeah.
pre-diabetes kind of like phase and a few
Yeah.
things shifted for you over the past few months.
Yeah, it sure did. Yeah, I, have high blood pressure, and that is one of the things we're continuing to work on is to hopefully minimize the medication that I'm on. But I got a from my annual visit a high A1C reading and pre-diabetic. And I just remember saying, "There's no way, like,
Mhm.
there's no way, at 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, 10 months into this, that would be a reading I would get." Maybe it was only, like, 8 months into it. And I remember thinking, "Okay, this is in my control. This
Mhm.
isn't a bad read. This is in my control. I need to continue to figure out where I can impact that." And so I have continued to figure out ways to become more plant-based and gearing my food choices to being more plant-based. And then I went back and did a scan, another A1C reading here, went back in March, and it had dropped dramatically.
Look at that. Look at that. Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, in my head, I didn't, discount it to a bad read, or I
Mhm.
don't know what they're talking about. If
Sure.
okay, what can I do? There really are things I can do to impact my health.
Mhm.
And again, I am making much different choices food wise that are more plant based. And it's delicious too.
Well, I mean, after you sent me the lentil picture, I was like, "Oh man,
Ugh.
I gotta head over to Omaha soon."
So good. Again, within what I could do, and I made small changes over time. I didn't just all of a sudden change
Right.
everything at once, but continue to think about, okay, where am I going to make a different choice that's more plant-based in my breakfast
Mhm.
and maybe my lunch this week, and continue to build on that. And it
Right.
and it did make a difference.
You know what's interesting from what you shared, and I think it's important to highlight because you mentioned like, 6, 9, 10 months into the process. You would think logically somebody who's dropping weight, I mean, at that point we had probably dropped maybe 15, maybe 20-ish pounds at that
Yeah.
point. And you would
Uh-huh.
think like, how the heck am I getting a pre-diabetes rate? It doesn't make sense logically until we actually take a step back, right?
Yep.
And look at the big picture and actually understand like what is the root cause, right? And we've talked about this a lot over the past few months, right? What's
Yes.
the root cause, right? And when we understand the root cause, especially of certain chronic health conditions, speaking about diabetes in particular, I mean, diabetes is a multi-billion-dollar problem which has had free solution for a long, long time, right? And so what they found, and actually for those of you who haven't listened, there's a good episode with Dr. Angela. She's a lifestyle medicine physician. I think episode 20 or somewhere along. She actually shared kind of like the root cause of diabetes, which many of us are told is sugar. Right,
Sugar.
too much sugar, right? And so we cut out the bread, we cut out the rice, we cut out all the carbohydrates, right? But actually, the root cause of diabetes is actually fat. It's actually fat, which blocks the receptor in the cell, and particularly more biased towards kind of like animal fat. And so that's interesting because when we look at just the quantity, how much you're eating, right?
Yeah.
That's only one part of the equation.
Mhm.
We got to come over to the other side of the equation and look at what's the quality. Where are the nutrients, right? What am I getting specifically here that's not just supporting my physique, right? Like my body composition,
Yep.
but also my organs, the functioning of kind of like the inner terrain, so to speak. And what I acknowledge from your journey, Vicky, it's never been, or let me cross that out. Maybe it started out in the beginning as being more of an all or nothing mindset. Like, I'm going in or not, right? I'm
Yep.
going hard or I'm going home, right?
Mhm.
This very kind of like
Mhm.
competitive, athletic, kind of like overachiever mindset. But it's evolved so much to the point where you're now focusing on sustainability from the beginning, where it's like, what are the small levers that I can change? And maybe this meal, maybe in adding in an extra rep, adding a little bit more weight, improving a simple habit, adding more a walk, so to speak. And that's what's made the difference because it's
Yes.
no longer about this kind of like burnout perspective where we know, and we probably will. We've had seasons where we've sprinted hard, right?
Mhm.
For good reason,
For a
right? Yeah.
reason,
For a
yeah.
reason, right? Like we don't want
Mhm.
to diet forever, right?
Right.
But at the same time, it really is a marathon, right? It's a
It
marathon
is.
with sprints inside of it, but a marathon nonetheless,
And you train differently in a marathon than you do for a sprint. You
for sure.
train totally differently, and you do have to pull levers depending on where you are in that process of training for that marathon. And I think that you're right. That is one of the fundamental differences here is that there's not an end goal.
Mhm.
There's not a end finish line that I'm going to cross. This is a continuation. And so it is okay. I will have to make slight tweaks. I will have to make differences along the way, as things impact me. I will have to change, depending on as I get older, what sorts of health things. I will have to make those changes, but I'm more willing to do that now because I see the value in it.
That makes sense. And I think if I could capture one word from what you've embodied and you've repeated multiple times in today's conversation, it's been ownership. It's been
Yeah.
you, and you said making that conscious decision, taking ownership every day, not once a month, not once every couple, like every single day. And some days have not been good days. Some weeks have not
Mhm.
been good weeks. Even some months have not been the best of months. But it ultimately, not that it doesn't matter, but the decision must happen regardless, right? The ownership must show up regardless, right? Because whether
Yeah.
it's a good or bad day, am I going to take ownership today? Am I
Mhm.
going to hold the reins or just let the reins slip and just let the ox go into the wilderness for like 10 years, right?
Yeah, and I know that might seem so daunting, but if you just break it down into bite-sized pieces every day, which you take ownership for,
Mhm.
and what you decide to do, then it's much more doable.
It is. It is.
Not easy,
Not
but
easy,
doable.
but doable. To conclude today's conversation together, is there anything that you feel like we missed or anything that you just feel called to share or just end off with, Vicky?
Well, I think what I would just summarize is that this journey has had successes and failures.
Mhm.
It has had ups and downs, but it has been consistent. And, I think for a lot of us who are high overachievers, that we don't necessarily celebrate our failures, but there are failures that I've had that have helped me, you know, realize what I want and what I need to do. And
Mhm.
so I celebrate those, both the successes and the failures in this journey. And I will continue to do that over
Mhm.
the course of however many years this is.
Absolutely. And I love that because it just, again, embodies the spirit of just ownership, like taking ownership of the success and the perceived failure, right?
Yeah.
In my
Yeah.
mind, I mean, all failure is feedback. It's an opportunity to learn from, right? So,
Yeah.
and
Great point.
success is just like, oh, okay, well, I see that the data went correctly this time. That's great. That's also great. It's kind of like we become a little bit more neutral, where it's like, great, this is awesome. Okay, not so awesome, but also great in the fact that I can learn something about myself too.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yes, we don't necessarily tie the emotions one way or another. There's not kind of evens out the emotional toll
Right.
when things go wrong or go right.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Vicky, it was a pleasure having you on today. I really appreciate your insights, the journey, and probably the thing I'm most grateful for. I'm grateful for the honor to learn and grow with you on this journey. So I appreciate you, Vicky, and thank you for sharing today.
Yes, Gabriel, thank you as well. We have a lot of years left for this journey, so thank you very much.
We're just getting started, Vicky.
Yeah, we are.
I appreciate
Yeah, thank you.